The intimately linked agendas.
So it's really important that the emergency services have access to that spectrum in the future, because that's the only way they can deliver a good service. If governments were to auction it all off, as they have done so far, and want to buy a service for the emergency services from the normal market, the governments will effectively only have two options. Either to pay the price what these operators will ask to deliver the service, or to lower the quality of service of our public safety systems. And I don't think any of us wants to get in that situation.
Or do we need to have some dedicated and harmonised, at least across Europe, spectrum? And the answer from the CCPG's point of view, which I can elaborate on for any of you who has questions, is absolutely we need to find harmonised, dedicated spectrum for public safety and other critical users.
You might know that Germany is just about to, well, finalize, complete this year the setup of their nationwide TETRA network. So you might wonder why we're already thinking about broadband. We are indeed in the very early stages of a political decision-making process, talking about broadband and talking about spectrum. In Germany, you probably know we are a very federal country with federal organizations. So we have at one point the federal level, but then we have 16 states and police, fire workers, rescue are all or state or communal affairs, responsibilities. And so at this point in time, we have the process of coordinating the requirements of our first responders in terms of broadband. That has been somewhat done in 2012, and the conference of the states, the German states of the Ministries of Interior, has given a mandate to the Federal Ministry of Interior to represent the interests of PBDR within the German government and towards the outside. It's quite a vague mandate as far as concrete activities for the planning of broadband networks is concerned, but it's very precise on spectrum, because although the requirements might be still somewhat vague, they're talking about multimedia and that stuff, pictures, maps and so forth, live streams, and they're very sure that without spectrum there will not be a PBDR broadband usage and services in the future. So this is thinking years ahead, and that's quite exceptional for PBDR forces, because they're very much on a practical level, and thinking that far is very interesting. So the German Ministry of the Interior is fighting for the interests of PBDR, and especially fighting for broadband of the German PBDR in the 700 megahertz band. There is still an ongoing discussion, because in Germany the Ministry of Economics and now the Ministry of Transport is responsible for the allocation of frequencies, and these ministries the regulators are sort of by natural interest more in favor to auction the stuff instead of giving it to the PBDR. So this is still an ongoing discussion, and you might be aware of the fact that we have a relatively new government that is restructuring responsibilities, and the responsibilities for spectrum have been transferred from economics to transport and infrastructure, and we will have to see how the discussion will continue, but we are pretty positive that there will be spectrum for PBDR, also because we're joining forces with the Ministries of Defense, or at least we're trying to.
In France, we have two TETRA pole networks that are going now quite home. furthermore, we have more and more user requirements for broadband video, and those people need to ensure the security of citizens, and they will need broadband to be more efficient and to improve the security all over the country. Particularly in Paris or in big cities where commercial networks are always overloaded when security people want to communicate. We think that we will need dedicated spectrum to ensure the ability of public safety officer to communicate. Now, in the past few years, we first imagined to take spectrum in the 400 MHz band, but now we have more and more interoperability user requirements, and we must work with our neighboring countries, Belgium, Germany, Netherlands, and we need to have a common spectrum, to have a more dynamic market, and interoperability at the borders really working, because now with our TETRA and TETRA Pro network it's really difficult and we really lack efficiency. So for the future we want a standard with an efficient market and interoperability. That's why by coming in the TCCA the past few years we agree with other countries that the 700 MHz is a unique, and it may be really a unique opportunity to ensure interoperability at the borders and this dynamic market. Then one last point, more minor, in the 700 MHz we are asking for 2 × 10 MHz, and the need is defined for data and not voice. So the 2 × 10 MHz in the 700 MHz band will not be enough. So in the second step we still have in mind also to ask for 400 MHz, but in those 400 MHz band we will not have interoperability. That's why the 700 MHz band is so important now.
So Sweden, yes, a little bit different situation than Germany and also France, because we ended the rollout for the TETRA system in 2010, and after that we started the process of using TETRA, and as the technology actually is very solid and very good for usage inside public safety and crisis management. And for that sector, people has been they are today very satisfied with the functionality that we can provide them. And for a couple of years ago we started the discussion about what kind of services do you need for the future, because it actually starts there. It's a discussion about what kind of services do the public safety and the crisis management sector need for the future way of dealing with crisis and certain incidents that they are actually dealing with on a daily basis. So we have had a little bit of a journey together with the public agency who is dealing with frequencies in Sweden, that is called PTS, Post and Telecom Agencies, agency under the Ministry of Industry, and they are also in the very optimistic way saying that everything can be solved by the market and also by the commercial networks. And we are actually now getting in really good, we are creating a good discussion environment together with the PTS, and says to them that the government has to secure the basic need of crisis management and the public safety sector, because we cannot actually rely on that the commercial network will provide the end user the needed capacity or the needed services when they are actually needing it. So from a very hard position inside PTS to say, okay, everything in this 700 band should go to the market. Now we have an open discussion about what kind of really need do we have inside the public safety sector and the crisis management sector of how to deliver the future services to this sector. And I think we will solve this in some way. But it's very easy to get into a technical discussion. It's not actually about LTE or not. It's actually about what can you provide to the end users. What kind of services can we provide? If it's on LTE, or is it on Wi-Fi or WiMAX or something else, or CDMA or whatever. It doesn't really matter for the end user. For the end user, the only thing that really matters is actually the functionality. Then we can say that the economy of scale, it should be good if everybody goes in the same direction, of course. So we are very much in favor of harmonizing the spectrum inside Europe, and Sweden is also very much in favor for cooperation across borders. So we are really looking forward to what kind of services can be provided in this new kind of technology, and we will follow that track very carefully, and we will go in the right direction, I think.
Thank you, Stefan. Let's move over the border to Norway, to Helge.
Telecommunication is very hard to understand for politicians. It's much easier to explain about roads and railways and water and sewage and such things. I have several times had the possibility, to put it that way, to try to explain to common people what is a frequency. And just try to do that to somebody that is not an engineer. It is very hard to explain. But let's say then that in order to build good mobile networks, you are willing to accept that there is something called frequencies that you need. And then it is, by my experience, it's quite easy to make the politicians understand, since this is of important, that we should also take the requirements from public safety into account when you are now going to, let's say, auction these frequencies. Or to turn it upside down, can you really auction these frequencies now without thinking of public safety? I have been to several meetings in our parliament and tried to explain this to our politicians, and I think we have come to a point now where they ask us, what can we help you with in the future? And I think that is a long way to go. In our country, the investment in a nationwide TETRA network, as we will have next year, we are late like Germany, but I think we are coming good when we are coming. This is the first time ever when politicians were presented for how much does it really cost to serve public safety, and then they decided that they would take that investment. In our country, they have we are talking about approximately 6 billion NOK, and to put it another way, it is only 2,400 Norwegians that pays for each base station. And that is not so much. It's a huge investment, and for a country like Norway, when the investment is so high, the expectations from the public, from the politicians, but maybe the most from the public, they are enormous. They expect this network to deliver everything. If the power falls out, they expect the network to keep on playing. If we have like we had, unluckily some years ago, we had a terror attack in Oslo, they expect it to work in all kinds of situations. But at the same time, we can read in media that why don't the police get this fantastic video since the small children have it. This is very hard to explain. So, and going back to Norway being a country with only 5 million people, for a country like us, to have harmonized spectrum is extremely important, because we are not a big country like so that we can push development or technology in a certain direction. We have to lean on the others, and that is why harmonized spectrum is so important. And if we look back in the mirror a little, in the TETRA specification, there was something called inter-system interface. I attended the first TETRA meeting in 1995. I was a relatively young man at that time. and one of the key issues with TETRA was to make a pan-European network. And ISI was the buzzword. It never happened. But now for the first time, Stefan here and myself on the Norwegian side, we will set up inter-system interface between our two countries. And I can tell you, it would have been much harder for me to explain to our politicians that we have made an investment for billions in Norway and they have invested billions in Sweden, but we cannot speak to each other across the border. So I think it's fantastic how this TETRA development came out here. You can't speak between the major European countries cross-border. That's not how it must be in the future. In the future, we need networks so that you can speak cross borders. It should be as it is with the mobile networks. You can bring your phone everywhere and it works everywhere. But of course, that it will be a challenge to come up with the operational routines to support it. But that's up to the public safety agency. So please understand that it is important this time to succeed. Therefore, we need a harmonized spectrum, and I think Europe, we need a harmonized spectrum for building a pan-European network. Crime is getting more and more international, and across the borders of Sweden and Norway, fire workers, ambulance workers, they like to help each other, but in order to help each other in a good way, they need a common communication system.
Radio communication Congress in 2015 gives the unique possibility, as already said, to see if we can have the 700 megahertz also suitable for PPR. That gives us the possibility to be part of the LTE ecosystem. That brings us in line with what is going outside Europe, where 700 megahertz is already in use for public safety, and that hopefully gives us the same as well what we have now with the TETRA standard, one common solution for technology and one common solution for frequencies.